Let me ask you a question. How many times in your life have you felt stuck? You knew you wanted more. You knew there was another level inside you, but something in your own mind kept holding you back. Maybe it was doubt. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was that little voice that whispers, you're not ready, you're not enough. It won't work for you. The truth is your entire life is built on the conversations you have with yourself every single day. And here's the secret. The moment you learn to change those conversations, you can change your entire destiny, because your mind is the most powerful force you will ever control. It can build the life of your dreams, or it can quietly destroy it without you even noticing. Here's the good news. You don't have to be a prisoner of old thoughts, old beliefs, or old stories. You have the power right now to shift your mind and open doors that once felt locked forever. Imagine breaking through the weight of fear. Imagine replacing hesitation with certainty. Imagine turning the impossible into your new normal. That's not just some motivational idea. That's reality when you learn to master your mind. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how, because the power to change your future doesn't live in the world outside. It lives in the thoughts inside your head. Change your mind and you'll change your life. So if you're ready, lean in, because once you hear this, you won't look at your life the same way again. When I say your mind is the master key, I mean in the deepest sense possible. Think about it. Everything you've ever created, every victory you've ever achieved, every moment of pride you felt, it all started as a thought. Before the business was built, it was an idea. Before the relationship was real, it was a vision in your heart. Before you ever stood on a stage, accomplished something that once scared you, it was first an image in your head. And yet, how often do we forget that the most valuable piece of real estate we own is not our home, it's not our bank account. It's not the place we live. It's the 6 inches between our ears. Most people live their entire lives without ever taking control of that space. They let their mind run wild, filled with old stories, old patterns, old beliefs, many of which don't even belong to them. They inherited them. Maybe it came from a parent who once told them they weren't smart enough. Maybe it was a teacher who said, you'll never be great at this. Maybe it was a failure that carved a scar and made them believe they weren't worthy of more. And without even realizing it, those words, those experiences, those moments became locks on the doors of their potential. The truth is, your mind is not meant to be a prison. It's meant to be the master key that opens every door in front of you. When you unlock it, you don't just change what you think, you change how you feel, you change what you do, you change what's possible for your life. Let me give you an example. 2 people can go through the exact same situation. Let's say they both lose their job. One person falls apart, tells themselves, I'm worthless. This always happens to me. Life is unfair. They spiral into fear, hesitation, paralysis. The other person loses their job and says, you know what? This is my chance. Life just ripped me out of my comfort zone and forced me to grow. Now I get to finally start that business I've been thinking about, or chase that career I've been too afraid to try. Same a pain. 2 totally different realities. What's the difference? Not the situation, it's the mind. Because your mind is the filter. It's the lens through which you interpret every single thing that happens to you. And if that lens is dirty, if it's clouded with fear, if it's scratched with doubt, if it's fogged up with the belief that you're not enough, you'll see a world full of obstacles. But when you polish that lens, when you decide to train your mind to focus on possibility instead of limitation, suddenly you start seeing solutions, opportunities, and resources you never noticed before. Your mind will give you whatever you demand from it. If you constantly ask, why do bad things always happen to me? Your mind will give you all the reasons why life is unfair. If you instead train yourself to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this? How can I turn this setback into a comeback? Your mind will also give you those answers. And the answers you focus on will shape the quality of your life. You see, most people think they don't have control. They think their thoughts just happen to them. But your thoughts are not who you are. They're simply habits of the mind. And like any habit, they can be changed. If you've practiced fear for 20 years, then of course your brain is wired to see danger in every situation. If you've practiced self-doubt, then of course you second guess yourself all the time. But the moment you choose to practice courage, to practice belief, to practice gratitude, you literally begin rewiring the pathways of your brain. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Your mind is like a muscle. Whatever you feed it, it becomes. If you feed it fear, it grows stronger in fear. If you feed it faith, it grows stronger in faith. If you feed it limitation, it builds a prison around you. But if you feed it vision, discipline, belief, and resilience, it will hand you the keys to freedom, tell you what separates those who rise to greatness from those who stay stuck. It's not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the decision to take control of the mind instead of letting the mind control them. Because the mind left unchecked will always default to survival. It will always look for what could go wrong. It will always try to keep you safe. And in doing so, it will also keep you small. But when you step in and say, no, I'm the one driving here, I decide what I focus on. I decide the meaning I give this. I decide what I'm going to do with this moment. That's when your entire world begins to shift. So let me ask you one thought you've been carrying around that doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe it's, I'll never be successful. Maybe it's, I'll never find love. Maybe it's, don't deserve more. What if that thought is the very lock keeping you from the life you've been praying for? And what if in this very moment you could turn the key and open the door to a new way of thinking? Changing your mind doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means creating a stronger one. It means deciding that no matter what life throws at you, you have the power to choose your response. And when you choose your response, you choose your destiny. Every great leader, every great innovator, every person who has ever made history started with a mind that refused to accept limitation. They trained themselves to see differently, to think differently, to act differently. And because of that, they lived differently. So I want you to remember this. You are not your past. You are not your fears. You are not your failures. You are the thinker of your thoughts, the creator of your meaning, and the director of your destiny. Your mind is the master key. And the moment you take hold of it, you can unlock any door you choose. Beliefs shape your reality more than anything else in this world. You and I can live in the exact same environment with the same opportunities, the same challenges, the same economy, and yet end up in two completely different worlds. Why? Because the beliefs we hold act like invisible architects, designing the walls, ceilings, and limits of our lives. Your beliefs are not just ideas you carry, they're the rules you've accepted about what's possible, what you deserve, and what you're capable of. And the scary part is most of those beliefs weren't even chosen by you. From the time you were a child, beliefs were being handed to you. You didn't come into the world thinking you were shy or not good at math or incapable of being a leader. Someone said something, someone modeled a certain behavior. You failed once and decided that failure was your identity instead of just an event. Slowly, those beliefs were planted like seeds. And the longer you watered them with your focus and attention, the stronger their roots grew. Now, those beliefs show up in the decisions you make, in the opportunities you reach for or don't reach for, in the relationships you settle for, and in the standards you live by. Think about it. Person who believes they're destined to fail will approach life completely differently than someone who believes they're destined to succeed. Even if they face the same setback, the person who believes failure is permanent will give up. The one who believes failure is feedback will rise again. The difference isn't the situation, it's the belief about the situation. Beliefs act like the thermostat of your life, no matter what's happening around you. They regulate what's possible for you inside. Let me give you an example. Have you ever seen someone with incredible talent, unbelievable potential, someone who could go so far, but they never do? You wonder, why don't they go for it? Why don't they step up? It's not a lack of ability. It's not a lack of opportunity. It's a belief. Somewhere inside they've decided, I'm not enough, or people like me don't get that kind of success, or if I try, only embarrass myself. And those invisible beliefs control their actions more powerfully than any outside force. Now, here's the truth. Your beliefs are not facts. Just because you've thought something over and over again doesn't mean it's true. A belief is nothing more than a feeling of certainty about something. It's a thought you've reinforced so many times that your brain treats it like reality. Reality is not what happens to you. It's the story you tell yourself about what happens to you. If you tell yourself the story that you'll never be wealthy, your brain will look for evidence to prove you right. If you tell yourself the story that people can't be trusted, you'll filter every relationship through suspicion. If you tell yourself you're not capable, you'll never even attempt the things that could prove you are. The same rule works the other way. If you begin to plant new beliefs, empowering beliefs, your mind will also look for evidence to support them. Believe that you're resourceful, and suddenly you'll notice creative solutions you missed before. Believe that you're worthy of love, and suddenly you'll start attracting healthier relationships. Believe that you're capable of massive growth, and suddenly the same obstacles that once crushed you become fuel for your rise. The power of belief is that it doesn't just change how you think, it changes how you act. And when your actions change, your results change. You can believe you're not athletic and you'll avoid sports, you'll skip the gym, laugh off opportunities. Or you can believe, I wasn't born with it, but I can train myself. And suddenly you're in the gym, you're learning, you're pushing through. The results reinforce the belief reinforces the results. That's the cycle of growth, or the cycle of limitation. Here's what most people don't realize: you can choose your beliefs. They're not carved in stone, they're patterns. And patterns can be broken. Beliefs are built by repetition, emotion, and evidence. So if you want to destroy a belief that's been holding you back, you need to challenge it with new evidence, attach massive pain to keeping it, and replace it with a belief that empowers you. For example, if you've been carrying around the belief, I'll never be successful, then you need to ask yourself, what has that belief cost me? How many opportunities have I missed? How much joy have I stolen from myself? How many times have I settled for less because I believe this lie? Feel that pain, because pain is leverage. Then build a new belief. Every day I'm becoming more resourceful, more driven, capable of success. And then prove it to yourself by taking action. You see, beliefs grow stronger through experience. If you take small actions that reinforce your new belief, you begin building evidence for it. You don't have to go from 0 to 1 million overnight. You just have to stack proof little by little until the belief becomes unshakable. And when that belief becomes unshakable, it doesn't matter what challenges you face. You'll keep moving forward because your mind is aligned with your vision. The greatest transformations in history didn't come from people who had all the answers. They came from people who had beliefs that fueled them beyond logic. The belief that something was possible when the world said it wasn't. The belief that they could rise when everyone else doubted them. The belief that they were chosen for more, even when there was no evidence yet. It's those beliefs that move mountains, that create revolutions, that turn ordinary men and women into leaders, innovators, and legends. So I want you to pause and really ask yourself, beliefs are guiding my life right now. Which ones are lifting me higher and ones are chaining me down? Because the chains aren't on your hands, they're in your mind. The key isn't outside you. It's the belief you choose to hold on to. At the end of the day, you will never rise higher than your strongest limiting belief. You can dream, you can plan, you can hope, but if deep down you believe you're unworthy, you'll sabotage yourself and you'll call it fate or bad luck or timing. It was never those things. It was the belief you refused to challenge. The power to shift your beliefs is the power to shift your world. Because when you decide to believe something new, you give yourself permission to live something new. When you change what you believe, you don't just rewrite your story, you rewrite your future. Emotions follow focus. It's one of the greatest truths about human behavior. Yet so many people live their entire lives never realizing it. We think our emotions are random, that they're caused by circumstances, by people, by luck, by the things that happen to us. But the reality is your emotions are shaped by what you consistently focus on. Whatever you put your mind on, ever you give your energy and attention to will expand inside you until it becomes the way you feel. If you focus on everything that's missing in your life, you're going to feel empty. If you focus on all the things that could go wrong, you'll live in fear. If you focus on all the times people hurt you, you'll feel anger or bitterness. But if you focus on what you do have, you'll feel grateful. If you focus on what you can control, you'll feel empowered. If you focus on the possibilities instead of the problems, you'll feel hopeful and driven. It's not the outside world that decides how you feel. It's where you place your focus in that world. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people sitting in traffic. Both of them are late for work. The situation is the same. One person focuses on the cars in front of them, the clock ticking, the frustration of being stuck, and they spiral into rage. The other person decides to focus on the fact that they now have a moment to breathe, to listen to their favorite song, to think through their day. Same situation, two completely different emotions, simply because of focus. Your mind is like a magnifying glass. Wherever you point it, that part of your life becomes bigger, louder, and more intense. And once you magnify it, your emotions follow. Think about how powerful that is. You don't need the world to change in order to feel joy. You don't need every problem solved before you can feel peace. You just need to shift your focus. That's how powerful you are. The problem is, most people never train this muscle. Their focus be hijacked by whatever screams the loudest. The news, social media, gossip, worries, fears, distractions. And because they don't control their focus, they don't control their emotions. They wake up and immediately focus on problems, stress on what they lack, and then wonder why they feel anxious or defeated. But the truth is, emotions are not accidents. They're the result of the focus you choose consciously or unconsciously. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Focus doesn't just determine how you feel in the moment, it determines the direction of your entire life. Because your emotions shape your decisions. If you're focused on fear, you'll make decisions to avoid risk, to play small, to stay safe. If you're focused on opportunity, you'll make decisions to expand, to grow, to push boundaries. Your emotions drive your choices and your choices create your destiny. That's why mastering your focus is non-negotiable if you want to live an extraordinary life. I want you to think back to a time when you were unstoppable, a time when you felt alive, powerful, unshakable. Maybe it was when you achieved something you didn't think you could. Maybe it was when you pushed through a fear. Maybe it was when you stood up for yourself or someone you love. What were you focused on in that moment? You weren't focused on your doubts. You weren't focused on all the things that could go wrong. You were focused on your strength, on your vision, on what you had to do. That focus created the emotion, and that emotion gave you the fuel to act. The same is true when you think back to times you felt defeated. When you were stuck in pain or fear or hopelessness, your focus was locked on everything you couldn't control, everything you lacked, everything that felt impossible. It wasn't that your life was doomed. It was that your focus built a cage around you and your emotions were the walls. But the moment you shifted focus, even slightly, you found strength again. You found clarity again. That's how it works every single time. There's a simple law you can never escape. Where focus goes, energy flows. If you constantly focus on the negative, your energy flows into frustration, into doubt, into paralysis. If you direct your focus toward gratitude, your energy flows into abundance, into joy, into action. And the most successful, fulfilled people in the world have trained themselves to master this. They don't ignore reality. They just choose to focus on the parts of reality that empower them, not the parts that paralyze them. Think about it like this life is always throwing events at you. Some are good, some are painful, some are neutral. You can't always control the events. But what you can control is the meaning you give those events, and the meaning you give is determined by your focus. If you go through a failure and focus on the fact that it means you're not good enough, you'll feel crushed. But if you go through the exact same failure and focus on what you learned, on how it's preparing you for a bigger comeback, you'll feel unstoppable. Same event, different focus, different emotions, different future. Beautiful thing is that you can train your focus. You can decide right now that you will no longer allow your mind to obsess over what drains you. You can decide to condition yourself to notice what you can control, what you can appreciate, you can grow into. And once you train your focus, your emotions will follow. It's like steering the wheel of a car. Wherever you point it, the car goes. Point it at fear and you drive straight into suffering. Point it at opportunity, you drive straight into empowerment. So ask yourself, where has your focus been living lately? Have you been focusing on what you can't control? Have you been focusing on the things you lack, the things you fear, the people who hurt you? Are you focusing on what you can create, what you can give, and who you can become? Because whatever you focus on, you feed, and whatever you feed grows. The truth is your emotions are not random storms, they're signals. Feedback from your focus. If you don't like how you're feeling, don't numb it, don't ignore it. Shift your focus. Start asking different questions. Instead of, why does this always happen to me? Ask, can I use this to get stronger? Instead of, what's missing from my life? Ask, what do I already have that I can be grateful for? Instead of, what if I fail? Ask, if this is the moment everything changes. Those questions shift your focus, and the focus shifts your emotions instantly. And here's the key, the more consistently you direct your focus toward what empowers you, the more automatic it becomes. Just like any muscle, your mind will default to the training you've given it. If you've trained yourself to focus on fear, fear will always be your first emotion. But if you train yourself daily to focus on gratitude, on growth, on possibility, no matter what happens around you, your emotions will align with strength instead of weakness. So if you truly want to change your life, you must take control of your focus. Because the moment you do, you take control of your emotions. The moment you take control of your emotions, you take control of the force that shapes every decision you make. And that, more than anything else, is the power that creates your future. Decisions rewire destiny. In the end, your life is not shaped by the conditions you were born into, the circumstances you're facing, or the challenges that appear in front of you. Your life is shaped by the decisions you make moment by moment, day by day. And I don't mean the big, once in a lifetime decisions, only the ones that seem obvious, like where to live or who to marry or what career to pursue. I mean the small decisions, the choices you make every single day, often without even thinking. Those choices are carving your future more than any outside force ever could. Every time you decide what to focus on, you're rewiring your brain. Every time you decide what something means to you, you're shaping your emotional state. Every time you decide what action to take or not to take, you're building the habits that define your destiny. And what most people forget is that indecision is also a decision. Choosing not to act is still a choice. That choice's consequences just as powerful as the ones you make consciously. Think about it. If you decide every day to hit the snooze button instead of getting up and moving your body, that small decision compounds over years into lower energy, less confidence, and fewer opportunities. If you decide every day to avoid difficult conversations, that decision compounds into broken relationships and missed chances for connection. If you decide every day to play small, to silence your own voice, to let fear dictate your actions, that decision compounds into a life of regret. And the tragic thing is, people look back and blame fate when in reality it was simply the accumulation of tiny decisions that built their destiny. On the other hand, every powerful life you've ever admired was built on the same principle. The person who's thriving didn't just get lucky. They made decisions, often uncomfortable ones, over and over again. They decided to keep moving when things got tough. They decided to believe in themselves when there was no evidence yet. They decided to act with courage even when fear was screaming at them. And every one of those decisions rewired their brain, reshaped their identity, redirected the trajectory of their life. Your brain is not fixed, it's malleable. Every decision you make strengthens a pathway. Imagine walking through a field of tall grass. The first time you step, it's hard to move. The grass is thick, path is unclear. But if you keep walking that same path step after step, the grass begins to bend. The trail becomes easier, more defined. Soon it becomes the natural way forward. That's how decisions work in your brain. First time you choose courage over fear, it feels uncomfortable. But the more you choose it, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, the more automatic it feels. Eventually, it becomes part of who you are. That's why decisions are so powerful. Every time you choose, you're not just deciding for the moment, you're shaping who you become. And who you become is your destiny. Let me give you a story. There was a man who decided he wanted to change his life. He was broke, unhealthy, stuck in a job he hated. Every day he made a new decision. He decided to read for 10 minutes instead of scrolling through distractions. He decided to go for a run, even when it hurt. He decided to spend less time with people who dragged him down and more time with people who lifted him up. None of those decisions looked like life-changing moments. But 5 years later, he was a different person. Stronger, wealthier, happier, fulfilled. His destiny wasn't rewritten in one giant moment of luck. It was rewritten in thousands of small decisions that compounded into transformation. And the opposite is true too. You've seen people who had everything, talent, opportunities, but they kept making decisions that weakened them. A decision to numb pain instead of face it. A decision to give in to excuses instead of rise to challenges. a decision to settle instead of demand more from themselves. And little by little, those decisions rewired them too. Until one day they woke up in a life they didn't recognize, wondering how they got there. The truth is, your decisions are the steering wheel of your destiny. They either move you closer to the life you desire, further away. The question is, are you driving consciously, or are you letting fear and habit grab the wheel? Because if you're not making conscious decisions, then your old patterns are deciding for you. Old patterns will always create the same old results. The most important thing you can realize is that a single decision can change everything. In a moment, you can decide, I'm done living small. You can decide, refuse to carry this story any longer. You can decide, I'm going to act now, not tomorrow. That decision, if it's real, if it's backed by absolute commitment, can shift the course of your entire life. History is full of moments where someone made a single decision that altered everything. A decision to fight instead of surrender. A decision to speak up instead of remain silent. A decision to keep going when quitting seemed easier. Those decisions didn't just change their life, they changed the lives of millions. So don't underestimate the power of choice. Don't lie to yourself and say, one decision won't matter. It always matters. One decision leads to the next, until your whole destiny is defined by them. The decision to rise today or to wait. The decision to face fear or to bow to it. The decision to live with passion or to drift through life. And here's what's beautiful. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need all the answers. You don't need permission. You just need to decide. Decide who you want to be. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Decide what standards you're going to live by. The second you make that real decision, not a preference, not a hope, but a true decision, everything in your life begins to reorganize around it. Your brain looks for new solutions. Your focus shifts. Your energy expands. Doors you never saw before start to open because your mind and actions are now aligned with your decision. That's the power you hold in your hands every single day. Not someday, not next year, not when circumstances change. Right now. The question is, decisions are you making today that will shape who you are tomorrow? Because in the end, your destiny isn't written by fate. It's written by choice. Change happens in an instant. Most people don't believe that because they've been conditioned to think transformation takes years, that it's slow, that it's a long process filled with endless struggle. But that's not the truth. Change does not take years. It takes a decision, a real decision. In a single moment, the years are in the preparation, in the hesitation, in the building of pain, until finally something inside of you says, no more. And in that instant, everything shifts. Think about your own life. Can you remember a time when you made a decision that changed everything? Maybe it was the moment you walked away from a toxic relationship. Maybe it was the day you finally decided to take care of your health. Maybe it was the moment you raised your standards and said, I will no longer live like this. That decision didn't take years. It happened in a flash. You might have suffered for years leading up to it. You might have gone back and forth 1,000 times, but when the moment came, when you finally drew that line in the sand, change happened instantly. The truth is, people don't change when they should. They change when they must. They change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of changing. And that tipping point can happen in a heartbeat. One event, one conversation, one moment of clarity can flip the switch inside of you. The challenge is that most people wait for life to force that moment upon them. They wait for the crisis, the breakdown, the heartbreak, the health scare, the financial collapse. They wait until life pushes them so hard that they have no other choice but to change. But you don't have to wait for tragedy to transform. You can choose to create that moment of decision now. Change is available to you right here, right now. You don't need permission. You don't need everything to be perfect. You don't need to know all the steps. You just need to decide that the life you've been living is no longer acceptable and the life you want is non-negotiable. That decision, it's real, rewires your brain instantly. It shifts your focus. It changes your emotions. It drives new actions. From that moment, you're no longer the same person because the standards you live by have been elevated. I've seen it happen thousands of times. Someone comes in carrying years of pain, years of excuses, years of limiting beliefs. They're convinced it's going to take forever to change. And then in a single moment of absolute clarity, they drop the old story and step into a new identity. It's like watching a light switch flip on. Their physiology changes, their energy rises, their language shifts, their vision expands. That's the power of a true decision made in the present moment. Don't confuse instant change with instant results. Results still take time, effort, and discipline. If you decide to get healthy today, you won't wake up tomorrow with a perfect body, but the transformation still happened in the moment you decided. Because in that instant, your identity changed. You no longer saw yourself as someone who neglects their health. You became someone committed to strength and vitality. From that moment forward, your actions align with that identity, and over time, results manifest. The shift was instant. The unfolding is gradual. This is why so many people never experience transformation. They think change is about slowly trying to push themselves into new habits, waiting for motivation, hoping one day things will just feel different, but they never make the decision that draws the line. They never hit the point of no return. They dabble, they wish, they hope, but they don't commit. And without commitment, there is no change. Every breakthrough begins with a moment of total commitment, a moment where you burn the boats, where you decide there is no going back. And that moment is not out there in the future. It's available right now. You can create it in yourself by raising the standard of what you will and will not tolerate, by declaring, this ends here. This stops now. From this moment forward, my life is different. Change doesn't come from information. You already know what to do. You already know you should take care of your body. You already know you should nurture your relationships. You already know you should go after your dreams. Lack of knowledge isn't the problem. The problem is the lack of a decision that says, I'm done waiting. I'm done hesitating. I'm done holding back. I decide now. There's a story of a general who led his army into battle. They were outnumbered, facing overwhelming odds. His men landed on the shore. He ordered the boats to be burned. As the flames consumed their only way back, he told his soldiers, we either win or we die here. With no retreat possible, with no option to go back. The army fought with everything they had and they won. That's what a real decision is. It's burning the boats in your own life. It's cutting off the possibility of retreat. It's saying, this is who I am now. There's no going back. So I ask you, what area of your life needs that moment of decision? Where have you been waiting, hesitating, tolerating, hoping for things to change without making the choice that will change them? Because until you decide, nothing changes. But the second you do, everything changes. Change is not about time. It's about courage. The courage to let go of the old story, the courage to face the fear of the unknown, the courage to step into the life you were meant to live. That courage doesn't arrive someday. It arrives in the moment you choose it. Every breakthrough you've ever admired, every transformation you've ever dreamed of began in a moment just like this. A moment when someone finally said, enough. This is my time. This is my life. And it changes now. Your mindset becomes your identity. And identity is everything. You can change your habits for a while. You can set goals. You can push yourself with discipline. But unless your identity shifts, you'll always be pulled back to the level of who you believe you are. Because the truth is, human beings will do anything to stay consistent with who they think they are. If you believe you're a smoker, you might quit for a month, maybe even a year. Deep down, if you still identify as a smoker, eventually you go back. If you believe you're not good with money, you might earn a little more, but your identity will drive you to spend or sabotage until you're right back where you started. If you believe you're shy, you can force yourself to go to a party, but you'll stand on the edges and reinforce the story that says, I don't belong. But when your identity changes, everything changes. If you see yourself as an athlete, you don't have to force yourself to work out. It's who you are. If you see yourself as disciplined, you don't struggle with routines, you live them. If you see yourself as a leader, you don't hesitate to step up. You naturally do it because that's who you are. This is why mindset is so powerful, because your mindset, the way you think, the way you focus, the beliefs you hold, creates your identity. Your identity drives your behavior. People try to change behavior without changing identity, and they wonder why it never sticks. But once identity shifts, behavior aligns effortlessly. So how do you shape your identity? You begin with your thoughts, the mindset you choose to cultivate. Every thought you repeat, every belief you reinforce, every focus you practice is a vote for the kind of identity you're building. When you say to yourself, I'm lazy, you're not just describing your mood, you're reinforcing your identity. When you say, I'm unstoppable, even if you don't fully feel it yet, you're planting the seeds of an identity that will demand stronger behavior. Your brain is always listening. It's listening to the words you say, the thoughts you rehearse, the stories you tell, and over time it builds an image of who you are. That image becomes the standard and your life bends to match it. If your identity says, I'm average, you'll make decisions that keep you average. If your identity says, I'm a creator, I'm powerful, I'm relentless, you'll act in alignment with that, even when it's hard. Look back at your own life. Haven't there been times when you acted completely different just because of how you saw yourself in that season? When you saw yourself as strong, you lifted more. When you saw yourself as confident, you spoke louder. When you saw yourself as defeated, you didn't even try. It wasn't the world that changed. It was the identity you were living in. This is why transformation isn't just about what you do. It's about who you decide you are. You don't just want to lose weight. You want to become the kind of person who values health. You don't just want to make money. You want to become the kind of person who creates and manages wealth. You don't just want to speak up once. You want to become the kind of person whose voice matters. Because when your identity shifts, your results naturally follow. And here's the thing, your identity is not fixed. It feels permanent because you've repeated it for so long. But you can change it the moment you decide. The moment you say, I'm done identifying with weakness, with fear, with limitation. From this day forward, this is who I am. That decision, reinforced daily, begins to rewire the way you think, feel, and act until a new identity becomes your truth. Some of you have been living with an identity that was handed to you by someone else. A parent who told you you'd never amount to anything. Teacher who said you weren't smart enough. A failure that made you believe you weren't worthy. And without realizing it, you accepted that as your identity. But that was never the truth. It was just a story you took on. The real truth is you get to choose who you are. You get to decide your identity. And the moment you claim a new one, your entire future shifts. The most powerful force in the human psyche is the need to stay consistent with who we believe we are. If you truly believe you're strong, you will fight through struggles to prove yourself, right? If you believe you're weak, you will surrender in challenges to prove yourself, right? It works both ways. That's why you must be relentless about shaping your identity on purpose. Because if you don't, life will shape it for you. Circumstances will shape it. Fear will shape it. Other people's opinions will shape it. You'll wake up years from now living a life that was never truly yours. So ask yourself, who do I need to become to create the life I want? Not what do I need to do? Who do I need to become? Because once you see yourself as that person, the doing becomes automatic. If you see yourself as disciplined, you'll do what it takes. If you see yourself as a leader, you'll take action even when it's uncomfortable. If you see yourself as unstoppable, you'll keep going no matter how many times you fall. Identity is destiny. And destiny is not something you wait for. It's something you create with your mindset, with your decisions, with the beliefs you choose to hold onto. The question is, you living out of the identity of your past or the identity of your potential? Because the moment you align your mindset with the identity of your highest self, you unlock a future that was always waiting for you. So remember this, the story you tell yourself about who you are is the most important story of your life. If you tell yourself you're broken, you'll live broken. If you tell yourself you're whole, you'll live whole. If you tell yourself you're powerful, you'll live powerful. Your identity is the engine and your mindset is the fuel. Together, they will drive you to the life you've always known you were meant to live.